So, with that one action, you can test the differential pressure input, the valve output. You'll hear the valve open, and both the limit switches, which they're pretty easy to access. And Terry has this really cool video that I'm not sure if he's going to show it tomorrow, but I know for a fact Thursday, if he doesn't show you tomorrow, has a breakaway of the filter flushing, so that you can better understand kind of how they work. And I won't bore you with my probably overcomplicated explanation today. But basically, there's a shaft that goes all the way to the end. It has kind of little branches that come off with little suction scanners that rotate around and around throughout the inside of the screen. The water goes in from the inside out. So the catch to having a successful flush on a filter is back pressure. So let's say you've got 80 pounds before the filter and 20 after. It will not flush. It'll take the water from the inside, and we want the water from the outside to push the crap from the inside of that filter into the suction scanners, out of this valve, and down the road. So if you ever end up, here's some troubleshooting in our startup class, if you ever end up at a job where their Amiod filter, whatever automatic filter won't flush, shut the isolation valve to their pump station and raise their set point. That will get as much pressure as possible after the filter without a bunch of flow, and will allow that pressure to basically vacuum the inside of the filter. So
shift the incoming isolation valve, right? The incoming into the filter?
No, for the pump station. Because we need pressure after the filter to push, and it'll
So
be on.
the only piping shut that off so it creates that pressure for
Back.
it to go to the.
It'll make way. I mean, this was hard for me to wrap my head around. It'll make more sense when you see the breakaway video. And in the video, the filter works really well. Well, and we'll talk some more tomorrow on how to deal with filter issues. But that's something that eludes so many people, and I just, you know, my filter won't flush, and I'm like, all right, close the discharge valve. I don't want to deal with it. Just come out here and flush it. And I'm there for like 5 minutes.
Here's my bill.
Here's my bill. I have a minimum 1 hour charge. You know, is there anything else you want me to do while I'm here? So, yeah, there's two limit switches. When the disc on this shaft reaches one limit switch, the PLC program tells the motor to stop, reverse direction, until you hit this other limit switch. Ew. Socks are like nature's napkin, or man's something, napkin.
Just recorded that.
Am I going to be on TV?
Streaming live.
Nobody will understand what the hell you meant.
Well, I'm married, ladies, so. All right, so this is why we have lists. Personally, and I'll tell you this tomorrow too, I don't follow a list. I go there, I throw stuff in the air, I adjust things, I get water sprayed at me, and then I go back in the truck and say, yeah, I did that. Oh crap, I better run back in there. So, that's why I'm following a list today. Oh yeah, so, you know, and the more of these operators and engineers and people that are going to care deeply about the operation of this pump station you can have at the startup, the better. Because then we can all go through the entire touchscreen program, screen by screen, and collectively come to a decision on what will work for their site. Because I guarantee you, not everyone's going to agree. This will also give you an opportunity to discuss the operation of their pump station and how it will react in different situations. And if you have a cradle point modem, These guys don't, but if you do have one and they don't like the operation, you can give us a call. We can do a program patch, make it work however they want, but they need to make that collective decision, because I'm not going to be here all day changing the one thing back and forth. So that's why I like as many people as possible at the startup. So yeah, I just go through every single screen one by one, every single adjustable setting. I'll explain to them how it works. Then we can make whatever adjustments they feel, and I can argue with them if I disagree, will work the best for that site.
This is what depends on who they are. This is what
It depends on who they are. Yeah, I was just out on a job where it was spec'd. If you lose analog from the transducer, to have all the pumps go full speed. That was in their spec. So when we got to that screen, I said, okay guys, something you need to understand. The engineers specified this to go full speed, just so you know. Oh man, they were not okay with that at all. This was a city water booster station. I'm like, well, we can make it work however you want, but this is how it's gonna happen. And they said, well, why the hell would we want to do that? Why the hell would anyone want to do that? And I said, well, this is the reasoning behind it. Let's say you've got 2 fires. You've got a fire crew at each fire. They hook up their truck, the analog goes away, and the pump shuts down. Now you just burnt down 2 houses. Well, I'll paraphrase a little bit. He said, I don't effing care about one effing house. We're talking about every single fixture in this city being overpressurized. He's like, imagine that lawsuit.
It goes to the one weakest one.
So,
I had a 6,000 gallon minute pump station in Rhode Island, and it went to the first 12-inch tee that was weakest.
so this is how we compromised. During normal operation, they were pumping about 120 gallons per minute for their whole city. There's like 400 people in this little ass small town. So it was like, all right, with this flow, let's run 1 pump full speed and see what it does. So we would pick a pump, and if it got too high, we'd turn it off. Anyway, so we found 1 pump, and it was like a little bit higher pressure, but it maintained their flow. All right. So if you lose analog signal, and I had the program patch downloaded by the time we were done with the conversation. But that's the type of thing that needs to be addressed during a startup. It's kind of, you know, over pressure, under pressure. Now, under pressure could differ dramatically from one site to another, right? Our standard under pressure, and this is to protect against the main break. Our standard under pressure is 20 psi for 10 minutes. So if our pump station cannot produce 20 pounds and 10 minutes goes by, it'll shut down on low pressure, assuming that there's been a break in the main line. Well, we had a couple of years ago a pump station, they had a main break. I mean, this was a huge pump station. It was a 4-inch main break down their main line a ways, and it didn't shut down because it could still maintain 50 pounds for an entire weekend.
Really?
And it caused a lot of damage, and there was a lot of, you know, cackles coming up. People were pissed, and they tried coming back at us saying, hey, your pump station didn't shut down when it was supposed to. Well, let's talk about this, right? It was maintaining pressure this whole time. So how are we supposed to know, based on it's only doing 50 pounds, that there's a main break? Because when we were here doing your startup, you said 20 pounds was good enough. And how are we supposed to know that? I mean, what if there's a 1-inch break in somebody's house and it floods their basement? I have no idea. So, you know, things like that, I try to explain to people, you know, if your intake pressure is off of this huge tank and it is 21 pounds, no matter, you know, dynamic pressure, no matter how much flow is going through it, then I would say our low pressure for the intake on that pump station would be 15, 16 pounds. But, you know, if you're running low flow and it's 21, you're running high flow and it goes down to 4, I guess we're going to have to do 2. or maybe 3, but we'll see if that will work. A lot of these settings, we're shooting in the dark a little bit, right? But best guess, if they don't have any idea, leave it the way it was. All right, back to the list. So, check rotation of pumps with VFD. We already did that. We're already ahead of our list here. Oh yeah, another thing is when you're running the pumps on the drive, let's say you have a centrifugal pump, you can see the rotation. When you go across the line, you want to make sure that it's actually still going that direction, because the drive creates basically new power and can go whatever direction that you tell it to. And it doesn't necessarily know which direction that is other than forward or reverse. Adjust high and low pressure switches. You guys, I'm going to talk about, is anyone not here tomorrow? I don't want to explain this twice. Come on, I'll tell you tomorrow. Adjust the high pressure relief valve tomorrow. Test amnion filter operation. Now, it's pretty tempting, guys. It's pretty tempting to put our amnion filter in test, and it flushes and it works. All right, everything but the pressure differential switch we just tested. Right, so we need to, if you don't have one of those 3-way valves, you got to bite the bullet, man. Take that tube off and get water all over the frickin' place, and let it start a flush cycle. Then put that water back on. Sometimes you got to get wet. Sometimes you got to get dirty.
Do these flush on that differential switch, or do they flush on upstream and downstream pressure transducers? Because I see you've got both.
Differential pressure.
Yeah, but are you using that?
Yes.
Or are you using that transducer and that transducer and looking at the
You have to
difference?
get them to program that in if you want.
The switch
That's a
on
slow
the
switch?
On the
Okay.
switch.
But the filter operation is always on differential pressure, on the differential pressure switch.
It just looked like a pressure transducer down there.
It does. It does. It's the same brand.
Yeah.
So.
If you have both of them, they can program it in. One of the target commands that.
Oh, the low water float, we can talk about that twice because that's important. Right. Now when we build a pump column, we'll also put some tape around the low water float. So that's where it needs to be, right at our coupler here. So unless you like have x-ray vision, can see through water right where that pump intake is, don't mess with it. Alright? But while it's running in auto, running one of your zones, testing out the system, we're going to pretend here. Lift this puppy up. Oh, there's our cable. We're going to lift the low water float up. It should stop. And then when we drop it back in, it should restart unless we've disabled the auto restart function for low water. Alright, alright. Test amnion filter operation. Now check amp draw. Now the drive has CTs in it, and it'll give you an average on the display of running amps. Something to understand, and we'll talk more about this in our programming class, which I'm going to try hard to make fun, guys. I'm going to try. There's 3 lines of display on the 550. 550s are kind of go-to drive around here. You can't always trust what you see there, because as we get into group 34 display functions, you'll find that we can scale these numbers way off of actual, right? So, and we'll talk how to go into group 1 to look at actual raw data. But you can't always trust what you see on the keypad. But amp meter. If you get ambitious, and I don't expect everyone to do this, this is kind of one of those qualified personnel deals, right? And not everyone has an amp meter, I understand. But if you have one, it's a good idea to throw that puppy on each motor lead while it's running full speed. Otherwise, it'll be less, and you won't know why. Full speed. 1, 2, 3. They should all be pretty close. Now, if you've got one that's 10 and one that's 30 and one that's 2, you should be tripping a breaker, right? So if you have the ability to do that, I would recommend you do each motor by itself while it's running full speed. It's also important to test all the butterfly valves. It's pretty rare, but every once in a while we'll put a handle on backwards. Or one of these, valve position indicators can be on backwards. And it can say closed, but it's really open. Anybody seen those? So test the valves. Another way to do it is if you run the system up to pressure and you turn off all the pumps, the pressure should not drop. Right? Here's another funny story for you. I get calls every year. My pumps won't stop. My pumps are always running. Well, go turn them off. What happens? Well, the pressure drops. Well, you got water going somewhere. No, I don't. Okay, shut the isolation valve to the pump station. Bring it up to pressure. Okay, now turn them off. Well, son of a gun. Enough said. The CW screen, if equipped, it's going to be this Rainbird valve. After the filter, there's a little Rainbird valve. If the main pump is running, the valve will open. That valve supplies rinse water to an intake screen. So, time to involve the class again. How do you test to see if water's going through that? I mean, you can't see it.
Pressure gauge on it.
Well, there isn't one though. Otherwise, that would work.
Put one on them.
You could do that.
I mean, that's
It's
a
a
really good thing to
Rainbird
have
valve,
on
it's
hand
a
from the factory.
Wait, how now?
It's a Rainbird valve, if it's open, you just open the sweeter screw at the top, and if you have water, it's open.
Well, how do you know the water's going through it? Oh, if water's coming out of the top. I got you. So yeah, that'd work.
That doesn't prove though if there's water going through.
That proves that there's water going to it.
To it.
Turn it off.
All right, I'll tell you.
It doesn't prove.
Swim down. Put your mouth over the jet pipe.
And blow.
Ding, ding, ding. No. No, unless you know Paul Miller, who's our local scuba diver that, no joke, specializes in CW valves. You probably don't want to go under the water, because who knows what lurks beneath. Now, the way I do it is there's a ball valve in front of the valve. If you shut it off and you hear a shh, there's water going through. You'll feel it. But those are all super good guesses, guys. If you have a CW valve and you're not 100% sure if it's actually rotating under the water, what Nate? I don't know if you need Nate. Anyway, he came up with a pretty good trick. He had like a 10-foot chunk of PVC pipe he'd stick down by there and just listen in.
Yeah.
Works pretty good. But usually on a startup, you're not going to be listening for that. Here's a funny one for guys that aren't real familiar with it. Check the VFD parameters. Adjust where needed. So we'll talk day 4 about that. During an initial startup, probably should just stay out of the drive program. Just for now. Test, recalibrate all HMI settings. So we already did that. Now, I always like to tell people, once you have gone through all this testing and you know it works, one more time. Everything is shut, everything in auto. Start opening stuff up. Get all the pumps running. Close the valves back up. Everything stops. All right. And then before you leave, It's a good idea to go over the valves once more because during our testing we're probably messing with some valves and make sure everything is in the right position where it should be open, unless you're talking bypass valve, which should be shut. I don't like having bypass valves on those personally. And then be a pal to everybody. Take some really nice sight pics. If you've got the operator standing there, have him Vanna White it for you. Then when he calls, we can look at him and know who he is, right? And then send us the pictures, right? Because you never know. You know, I got a guy on the phone. He's telling me this. I have no idea what he's seeing.
Compliment his tooth. What is that?
Summer teeth?
Summer tooth.
Some are here, some are there.
Now, our factory calibrated set points, and we're talking sleep, wake up. You guys are so disruptive.
Sorry.
It's okay. Now, our low pressure shutdown, our low pressure delay, our high pressure shutdown, that's all documented here at the shop. So if you change anything, it would be super cool if you would scribble it out and put the new number in there. So then you say, are you guys super happy with your startup today? And high five. Then you hop back on your airplane and fly to, where are you from, Chris?
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Fly to Phoenix with Chris. So any questions on startup? Come on guys, ask me some questions.
Is that the meter that belongs to my truck?
Maybe. Next question.
Only one I got.
It is actually, and you should not today, tomorrow.
Yeah, no.
Tomorrow,
When the truck's back, maybe.
Something that I do is, before I even energize the top of the panel, if I can disconnect the power outside, I mean, I go through and I check every connection in that panel.
Oh yeah,
Because
we're gonna
it's
talk.
just bounced down the highway,
Right.
Oh yeah, that's
you
a
know.
good point.
and sometimes it may, I also check the tightness, and I give a little tug on the wire. Sometimes it's not all the way in its little clip.
Pops right out of there.
Yep.
That's something that every,
And I would say on that, especially if you're Joe O'Connor, all the way in New York or Connecticut or wherever. Yeah, wherever. Joe, where are you based out of? Okay. Home.
boom, him or me?
Oh, Connecticut. Okay, so especially if you're in Connecticut, stuff that ships cross country, you know how that is. Oh my lord, we've had so many, not issues, we don't have issues around here, but man, when you ship stuff across the country,
Truckers
It
don't
messes up, but you know, so you check everything in there.
it's like, oh no, I'm not ready to sign for it, I haven't kicked it enough.
It's vibration, just road vibration alone. Just
Yep.
a constant
You know,
low hum will shake it all loose.
I used to be able to tell if our UPS guy was here, because I would hear boxes hitting the parking lot. Boom, boom! I'd be like, really?
Yep, there goes a VFD. Another one.
I don't know what you make in a month, but that costs more.
It is a huge one.
So yeah, we're going to talk way more about startups tomorrow, and I hate to just go on and on and on, but I would like to encourage each and every one of you that if you don't understand something, even if it's not what exactly we're talking about, it is so much funner teaching people things they want to know, right? Or if you don't understand something, I could talk till I'm blue in the face about something different and not even know. So help us help you.
Is this a typical precision pump system right here?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. This could be, you know, irrigation water. First of all, this is an irrigation system.
Okay.
Subdivision, park, business complex, whatever. For irrigation water, this is a very cookie cutter type of pump station for what we build.
Can you kind of go through all your components that you have in there, kind of explain why you put in what you put in?
Oh,
like the flow switch, for instance, versus a
Okay.
flow sensor.
Well, flow meters cost money. Yeah, I just quoted a 6-inch flow meter. Now this is with the install, but it was like $5,000.
$350 a piece. Oh my God.
Yeah, but on a station like this, an Amiod filter?
You care about that?
Yeah.
It really depends on the spec and who we're competing with. And
This,
there's a,
yeah, this could be like 80 to 120 grand, so
Yeah.
5 grand on 80 is a lot of money.
Right. But I mean, even like a data industrial. Okay. Oh,
Well, in my
sorry,
area,
go
you're
ahead.
not gonna see, you're typically not gonna see the amiant filter unless a specifier specifies.
Right.
Well-
You're also not gonna see a mag meter when a 220B will do.
Yeah. Right.
You're not gonna see a lot of times, if there is a filter, you won't see a bypass on it, cause they're cutting every damn dollar down.
that's right, to win the bid.
So what applications are there for a station this size that you wouldn't want to put a flow meter on?
That we wouldn't want to?
Yeah.
I want to put a
Because
flow
this has
meter
got a switch
every
on
flow
it,
meter.
so why does this one just have a switch on it?
I'm sure that it wasn't part of the spec, and to come close to our competitors' bids, we put a flow switch in there to protect their system. They probably didn't even spec a flow switch. But to sleep by flow, you have to know if there's flow, so we have to have a switch. Does that answer your question?
It's better than an FS4-3.
Oh, I want to address the data industrial question, because data industrial is an insertion type flow meter and requires, including where the flow meter is, 15 pipe diameter length. So if you've got 6-inch pipe, that's what, 5 feet? That's why we can't use one of those. You have to have 5 foot of straight pipe.
Even with like 3-inch pipe, a lot of times the smaller pump stations, you'll have to do an extra loop with the pipe. So it's extra elbows, it's up and around.
Which I've seen that
I think that's
a
more
lot.
guideline. We've seen it.
Well,
Yeah.
see, we gotta
It's for
report
optimum
failures,
accuracy.
too.
Yeah, and I was at the same job I was putting this mag meter at. I'm like, you know, you guys have, 3 foot of pipe here. It's 4-inch or 3-inch. It is 3-inch. Now, if we go to 6-inch pipe, like we're going to have to do to add this pump and this filter, we're not going to meet the length requirements for this paddle wheel. And he's like, oh no, what do I do? And I'm like, well, how important is precision? Because if we're a couple of feet short, it's still going to work. It's just not going to be as accurate. So instead of being plus or minus 2 or 3%, we're going to be plus or minus 10 or 15%, depending on the turbulence in the water. So if it's not that important to you, the DEQ is not breathing down your neck, you just want a general idea, that may work. It may work real good. But in this case, the guy was like, oh, we just got a bunch of money, so quote us a mag meter.
But that's all, you guys saw, Rob showed, I think, a picture of a station where the pipe went down from 12-inch to 6-inch, I think. They had to cone down to get the velocity up for that flow meter to work. That also helps with that, the length that David's talking
Yes.
about, because now the diameter of the flow meter is a lot smaller, so you can maybe fit it inside the pump house or the enclosure.
One of the other ones too, where if you want to use the paddle wheel, you might have to get on the main line, you have to dig a hole, put a valve
Yep.
box,
Yep.
Yeah.
valve clamp.
Yep.
But if you
And then run some wires if you want to use that information for anything other than totalizing.
Yeah.
Well, here's another thing about flow switches. They have to have so many gallons per minute going past them to actuate anyway. So if you're on a 12-inch pipe and they're running a drip line that's 15 gallons a minute, you can't sleep by flow. Sorry. It's not going to work. In fact, in that application, you're probably going to want to remote start the pump station because it's not going to be able to sleep by frequency probably either.
So what happened to the deal?
Well, tomorrow I'll go through the components some more.
To open the pump and to turn it off.
The reason I'm pushing this stuff off tomorrow, our last class, I mean, I had what, an hour and a half? I was done in 45 minutes with startup and winterization, and that was with questions. Come on, guys, you're part of this, right? All right. Well, think about it. I mean, you guys have an opportunity here that not everybody has. You get to sort of learn something and then come back the next day and way more in-depth learning again. So gather questions.
There's nothing wrong with being done early, Dave. Especially for the last
Well,
session of the day.
But the
Just
Hey,
saying.
you're getting growlers anyway, aren't you? Yeah.
No, for the guys who want growlers, there's nothing wrong with it.
where's the growlers? Let's go.
For Jason, and because he's going to need the time to walk
Hey,
over to fill his growler
I'm
up.
withdrawing that request. I don't want you to be upset at me, so we're good.
But yeah, we're going to talk winterizations tomorrow. Winterizations, piece of cake, right? They're so easy to do, but
Gotta do it right.
you got to do them right. And there's a lot of wrong ways to do it. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk preventative maintenance, spring startup on an old crappy rusty ass system to make sure it's safe, to make sure everything works, to make sure it's calibrated, yada yada yada. Oh boy.
Awesome.
So you guys are free, you can go.
So who?
Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Yes!
So Jason and I and Jason's growler have room for